What are wormholes? Well, we're going to find out today. And before I can get there, I'm going to give an analogy of that leads us into it, a sort of introduction, okay? And so let me start with that. It's got to do with art. And I think it's a pretty good analogy for what's going on in mathematics, mathematical physics, mathemagics as we call it, okay? And so we start here. If we go back maybe, I don't know, 30 to 40,000 years ago, this is the kind of art you would find. You know, this is what they find on cave walls. So they were concerned about animals, I guess, and that's what they drew, okay? Many centuries later, we're talking about now in the days of Egypt, maybe 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, right? You get pictures of this nature. This is the type of art they were making, and it had to do a lot with the rulers, okay, with the people who ruled the country. Then you have maybe the Greeks. You could say maybe 300 to 400, even up to 500 and 600 years ago. This is what they were illustrating. They also made statues, right? They did a pretty good job on that. And I'm not including all the other societies and cultures such as the Aztecs and the Chinese and so on, right? There were other people out there as well. And by the time we get maybe to the Middle Ages, you get something like this. This is around the 13th century, okay? And what you get here is, again, portraits of kings. That's what they try to do. One of the main motives out there in those days was the Virgin Mary with a child. That was quite popular. You'll see lots of those around. By the time you get to the 16th, 17th century, they improved significantly on the pictures. They were doing portraits, and I guess that's probably the most famous one there, Mona Lisa. And, they were doing portraits primarily, and a lot of them were, the kings and rich people who wanted to leave a legacy. They wanted their future sons and daughters and granddaughters and so on to know who they were. And so they started getting pictures of this nature. There you have Henry VIII, and next to him, one of his daughters, right, Elizabeth. And you get other kings and princes out there. You have Charles II of Spain over there on the upper right, Louis XIV on the lower left, and so on down the line. What they did was make portraits of themselves so that they could leave something for the future generations. It turns out that by the time we get to the 19th century, early 19th century, we discover photograph. And that screwed everybody up because you get this case here, the heliograph of Georges Dumbois, and they took an engraving and they made a picture of that with some resist in the background, and they were able to make an imprint, a copy of that picture. Then you see, I think it was 1839 that Daguerre discovers the daguerreotype, right? And that's a picture of him 5 years later. Okay, so he invented essentially photography, or they were, many people on Earth were trying to figure out, how to take pictures. And here you have good old Abe Lincoln, and he's, you can see all the different qualities. You have the painting, the daguerreotype, and the photograph. And, so you didn't need to have a painter anymore to go in there and paint these rulers, these important men. All you had to do was bring the guy with the camera, some kind of camera, right, and take a picture of them. And it was just as good or even better than the painting. So what happened at that point, portraits died down. In fact, I had a chat with an artist one day, and he kind of enlightened me because, I don't know much about art. And so I went in there and said, can you paint the Mona Lisa? And he said, no, I can't. And, he didn't have the skills to do that because they're not being trained to do that kind of art. A lot of people are simply not up to that level, to the level of, some of these people in the 17th and 16th centuries. And so, what do they draw? What happened to art? And he kind of enlightened me. He said, art's no longer portraits. That kind of art, that went away. So, art is no longer portraits. So what do they do? And you see this somewhat, to some degree, at the end of the 19th century. You get people like Van Gogh and Cézanne, and what they did was they created these pictures. Today they're worth millions, by the way. And what are these pictures? These pictures don't have the same quality as a Mona Lisa. It's like, painting a face, right? A portrait. But this was the art that supplanted, the portraits. They started doing, they looked at ideas instead of the quality of what they were presenting. And here you have something that came out a short time later, 1910s, 1920s. You have Cubism, okay? And again, what you see is, just ideas being represented, quite abstract, really, surrealistic. What is that? They call it Cubism, okay? So what is that? It's just a new kind of art that they had to invent because the portrait died out, making portraits of kings. The camera did that. We didn't need to, to have a painter do that anymore. Here you have a picture that came in this movement in art, Cubism. This wasn't Cubism, but it gives you an idea how abstract the art became. This is Guernica, that's how we say it in Spanish. And Guernica is about a battle, where Hitler essentially used his weapons, was trying them out for what was going to come shortly afterwards. And, what it is very abstract. It's about a battle. Okay, that's what the picture is about. But you can see that it makes no sense whatsoever. What is this? And, even in my worst days, I think I can, with a little practice, imitate what he's got there. I can't draw a Mona Lisa under any circumstance. I think I could probably draw this one, with a little bit of practice. Maybe it takes me a couple years. I can draw that stuff. It's nonsense. It's just the idea that's being reflected. And again, they're representing the idea, and they have this surrealism, this irrationality. Just, some of that is unimaginable. Okay, that's what it is. Here you have another one, and this one was sold the other day. It costs above $50 million. They paid for this. Frida Kahlo's El Sueño, La Cama, The Dream, The Bed. And again, I think, with a little practice, I could probably even do this. Not that I'm any good at art, but, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just an idea being represented. And again, these things cost a lot of money today. Some people collect them for whatever reason. Maybe if they collect them to resell it and, have some value in it, that I can understand. But the guy who actually puts it on the wall and says, "Oh, I bought Kahlo's picture," I think he's out of his mind. There's no way I would put that thing on my wall, even if it was for free. Okay. Here's another famous one, and this was done by Salvador Dali. And this one's got to do a little bit with what Einstein and his buddies invented out there, which was time dilation. And so he had these clocks that melted, okay? And, this comes out the heels of special relativity a little later, but, that's what he was representing there. I guess this is, what it's all about. You have special relativity, and they say, we have something, I think they called it clock dilation or negative clock, just runs in the opposite direction. You have clock contraction if it runs too fast. And if it presses down on the scale too strongly, well, then you have clock weight increase. Something like that. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, the art really matches the theories that are out there, and they're trying to paint the math, essentially. Then we have the opposite. We have, imagine, the mathematicians trying to get equations for art. The other way around, right? And here we have a mathematician, and he's going to try to paint a picture of souls going to heaven or to hell, either way. And there you have the equation. Okay, so we have an equation for souls going to heaven. You have equations for souls falling into hell. How's that for math and union of math with art? Okay, and here that's for motion, because now you got to make the equation for the motion of the soul going upward, the spirit or whatever, right? And then or down there. Then you have the other guy that creates an equation just like for string theory that we had the other day. Here it is. We have an equation for all this cubism, these lines, these circles, these whatevers. Okay, so some abstraction, and you develop an equation for that. And then, of course, you have a fight between, those, because you have these two worlds. You have the world of souls going to heaven, and flying up there, and you have to look at the itineraries. Then you have the other guy who says, no, I'm doing equations for a different type of art. My equations describe lines and cubes and circles and whatever. And so, and they don't realize why they can't have one equation that can serve for both worlds. The world of the itineraries, the trajectories, and the world for, static figures, circles and cubes and whatever. And so this is more or less where math stands today. They have these equations that they have for quantum mechanics, they have equations for general relativity, but they want to come up with a single equation, the master equation, that can somehow synthesize both theories. And what's the problem? The problem is that they're developing equations now for abstractions. Just like in art, they moved into these abstractions that are unimaginable, they're surrealistic, and that's what we have in math as well. What they are doing now are developing equations for what? They're developing equations for strings. Do strings exist? Well, the answer you get is they haven't been ruled out. Okay, and they're developing equations what? For wormholes? Why? Because they haven't been ruled out. Because people believe in them. Just like, people believe in souls. And so if you believe in a soul, right, that goes to heaven, and it's still alive, the idea is still alive, well, they develop equations for souls, and you say, well, why are you wasting your time on souls if they don't exist? If there's no such thing as a soul going to heaven or to hell. And they say it hasn't been ruled out because all the priests in the parish, all the churches, they still believe in all this stuff. And so, you work on the equations because people still believe in them. And they have these abstractions, and that's what they work on. And that's exactly what's happening with mathematical physics. They're working on abstractions on things that don't exist. Things like strings, things like wormholes, and they're developing equations for it. And so, we arrive at here the equation for the wormhole. Okay, why did they waste time creating an equation for this nonsense that has no chance whatsoever to exist? And the answer is because it hasn't been ruled out. Okay, so that's where we stand today. The mathematicians are working on stuff that doesn't exist, that has no chance of ever existing, that has nothing to do with reality, with physics, with science. But they have to find something to do, just like the artists had to find something to do after, the portraits went away And so they had to develop new ideas, and they went into what? Into abstractions, into surrealistic images, and that's what they paint, and they're worth more than the real art, which was, a real portrait of someone, which, I don't. Again, I'm not an artist. I'm not into art at all. But I look at those pictures and say, that the guy who can draw that, a picture of a face so perfect as if it were a photograph, you take your hats off to that fellow. But to draw, this cubism, this nonsense that is just abstraction, you say, I mean, is that worth it? Would I put that on my kitchen room wall? And I don't think so. And again, if art has moved into that direction because it could no longer be doing what was really art, which was very high quality art, for something a little more real, like, a person, and it went into these abstractions, well, the same thing in parallel has gone on with math. They've developed equations for stuff that doesn't exist, for surrealistic stuff, because they had nothing else to do. They got bored doing the, standard calculus, algebra. They say, oh, that's so boring. I covered that in high school, and maybe freshman and sophomore years. Now I need something new. So they develop equations for all this nonsense. And that's where we are today.